Yo, Optimo with Bacardi Gold. Double cup, water drink, look like Barney though. Huh? My plug brought a brick to the party. Now I'm kicking it with Shawty, trying to hit it like a Mario.
Hey guys, you all look beautiful. You sound like you're ready to have a great time. That's optimistic. You go places and expect good things to happen. That's awesome. Now, this is a comedy show, and I hope you feel comfortable laughing, but I believe everyone in this room has some psychological damage, right? Maybe you struggle with addiction. Maybe you suffer from depression. Maybe you take relationship advice from an astrology podcast. I was gonna suck his dick, but he's a Gemini and Mercury's in retrograde. Everyone here is carrying some weight, right? Some people carry a lot of weight. You could be the honey boo-boo of emotional baggage. Tonight, I want to tell you my story, and I'll tell you what I tell women before I take my pants off. If you have any expectations, you're going to be disappointed. I don't know if you're going to laugh or not. I'm going to try my best to make sure you don't feel sorry for me, but if you could make some noise, pretend you're enjoying it, keep laying there, that would be great. My mom was 16 when she got pregnant with me, right? She was a baby. She was probably shopping at Gap Kids, pigtails, big red balloon in her hand, lollipop in her mouth, trying on maternity pants. Like, that's my mommy. Pregnant at 16, 2 hours before getting knocked up, she was selling Girl Scout cookies. 6 o'clock Thin Mints, 8 o'clock thick dick. That was her agenda. Right? And you need to be 18 to see a rated R movie, so it's chronologically accurate that society said to my mom, you're not mentally mature enough to see Pretty Woman in theaters, but here's a human-shaped nipple tassel with no survival skills. Yeah, it'll die if it doesn't siphon nutrients from you 8 times a day. And it's not like my mom had a great role model herself because, my grandmother, ended it all early, if you know what I mean, right? The marriage, right? She ended it early, they got divorced, right? Right, then after that, she killed herself, but... My dad was 18, kind of in the picture, but not really. He basically photobombed himself into 18 years of joint custody. They got married briefly, then got divorced when I was 2, so my family, tried to make it seem nuclear, but there wasn't anything there. If you fought in Iraq, you know what I'm talking about. But they tried to raise me like I was normal, and I wasn't, right? I was born with bilateral microtia and atresia. In other words, I was born without ears. I was a little baby Van Gogh. Now, I have a physical deformity, a speech impediment, and I was born profoundly deaf, which is a disability. So if you have a child with a disability, there are things you need to do differently. Like, if you had a 6-year-old who's in a wheelchair, there are accommodations you would have to make. But my parents, like me, weren't hearing it. If my parents had a 6-year-old kid in a wheelchair, they would have given him a bunk bed on the 3rd floor and said, he'll figure that shit out. Drake learned how to walk, you can too, YOLO. I didn't go to a deaf school, I went to public school. And if you know anything about kids in public school, they're incredibly accepting of people with disabilities. So I never learned sign language, I was never in a community of deaf people, and I didn't have a hearing aid, and you need the hearing aid, otherwise you're just raw dog deafing everyone. Right? And my teachers would get mad because I didn't listen. I had to explain to all of them, my ears do not work, right? They're very much unemployed right now. Yeah, they are filling out applications, but haven't heard any responses. And I'm not saying my parents didn't do anything. I think they were trying to make me quote-unquote normal, but between the age of 5 and 13 years old, I had 30 surgeries. So between the doctor appointments before the surgery, after the surgery, the MRIs, and the 2 weeks spent recovering in the hospital, after every operation, almost 4 times a year for 8 years, I saw my doctor more than I saw my dad. And that's partly because my doctor was fucking my mom. I made that up, by the way. My mom could never date a doctor. Like, if one of her boyfriends said they were struggling with their residency, that meant they were getting evicted. But I did have 30 surgeries, and a lot of those surgeries would be considered plastic surgery, so I might have an average face, but I got Kim Kardashian ears. In fact, one of my top 3 fears is that Kanye will try to fuck them and name our baby after a compass direction. The first thing the doctors had to do was stretch out the skin, so they implanted a silicone balloon for a couple of months. I'm like a 5 or 6-year-old kid walking around with a Pam Anderson boob on the side of my head. And kids would call me names like, well, I didn't hear them, but I'm sure it was mean. After that, they cut me open, took cartilage from my ribs, carved it into the shape of an ear, and stuck it back under the skin where the silicone was, right? The doctors, not the kids. That would be pretty satanic. It's after lunch, get 'em! Like if toddlers were doing experimental organ transplants on my body before nap time. My first grade bully was actually Doogie Howser, but anyway. They gave me skin grafts, and I had what looked like a colostomy bag full of blood on my hip. Then I had a bandage wrapped around with a plastic cup that goes over the side of my head. So basically, I had a training bra for my ear tit. I also had my first crush when I was 5, like back when boys said girls had cooties. I was a cootie denier. Everyone on the playground getting cootie shots, I'm passing out pamphlets on herd immunity. But I was a fat little nerd with a speech impediment and an ear tit. I had all 151 Pokemon cards, including a holographic Charizard. Those girls looked at me like I was a goddamn snack, right? And my mom and I moved, right? Every year I went to a different school. People would ask me if my dad was in the army. I was like, no. If my dad was ever wearing camouflage, he was hiding to avoid the child support. And every year I was like Katie Heron in Mean Girls, right? I had to relearn all the different cliques and rules, people asking why I'm white. My dad got remarried. He and my stepmom moved to a house in the suburbs. Every week I would stay with him from 5 o'clock Saturday till 5 o'clock Sunday on the dot. Basically, my mom wanted to go line dancing, and my dad said, I will babysit for 1 earth spin. After 360 degrees, I'm gonna need you to wrap up that electric slide. So normally I'd go over to his house and I'd sit on the driveway by myself playing Zelda on my Game Boy, you know, bonding. Right? But they lived there for a few years, which I didn't even know was possible because before that my dad lived in an apartment and my mom moved twice a year, so I didn't know what a lawnmower was. You can't pluck grass out one by one. That'll take forever. Maybe you get down on your knees with a pair of scissors like it's an arts and crafts project for Earth Day, but I thought the grass gets up to your ankle, then you move somewhere else where the grass is down to your toe knuckle. You know, because if it gets too high, you get covered in seeds, and then you start turning into an arboretum, and then you get face bees. In fact, that's number 2 of my top 3 fears. It goes number 2, face bees, number 3, a Kanye West ear baby named West West. The point is, that was the first time I saw what stability looked like. I had friends in the neighborhood, but that's because I was in middle school and they were in elementary. They didn't see me as different. I was this older kid that showed up on the weekend to show them my Pokemon cards. It'd be like 7:30. I'm like, hey, Kevin, let's hang out. He's like, can't, bedtime. One night, I'm in the driveway playing Zelda on my Game Boy. My stepmom told me there's a party going on across the street, and there are high school kids from our neighborhood hanging out in the garage. She said, I think you should go over there and talk to them. I said, respectfully, you must be on crack. Yeah, those kids are in high school. I'm a fat middle school kid with a speech impediment and an ear tit. You're not gonna pay for therapy, and I don't know if you realize, but my ears are still very much unemployed. It's a down economy, bitch. So I'm in the garage with all the high school kids. I'm in the corner playing my Game Boy, and 2 girls from the neighborhood start talking to me, Kelly and Kaylin. They're both basic, skinny, blonde girls. Not really Paris Hilton, more like Paris Motel 6. Now, Kaylin was a cheerleader, homecoming queen, recently moved into the neighborhood. The week before that, I'm walking into the house, and I think her older sister yelled, my sister thinks you're cute. Okay, but I'm deaf, so she could have said anything. She could have said, my sister sings the blues. I don't know. Does she like me, or is she advertising a soul mixtape? Hard to say. So we're in the garage, and Kelly tells me that Kaylin likes me. I'm like, obviously. And Kelly's like, oh, well, did you know I like you too? Damn, I'm good. This went on for a month. Every weekend, I go to my dad's, they flirt with me, we talk about going on a date together. Every week, that's what I look forward to. I'm buying breath mints like I'm gonna get my first girlfriend, until one week I go over, my stepmom tells me they're getting a divorce. Now, once again, I'm on the driveway by myself next to a for sale sign. And I knew everyone on that block. Every other kid in that neighborhood had a mom, a dad. They're all wearing the same colored team shirt, holding hands at dinner, working on a fucking Norman Rockwell puzzle. It sounds awful. Hey, honey, I found a side piece. Yeah, well, your husband is banging a side piece while you're at Pilates. And I get it, I'm jealous. But that moment is when Kelly and Kayla came over. They told me they never really liked me. They were only pretending. And I did not cry one time. I cried 5 times. For you young kids, that was the equivalent of a breakup text, right? We didn't all have phones back then. We had to make emojis with our face. More importantly, anytime a girl showed interest in me, I thought she was lying, right? I put up a wall. One prepubescent heartbreak, I did more than Donald Trump in his entire presidency. And for the first time, my mom settled on a house, and for 3 years, I went to Madeira Beach Middle School, right? But I was a hopeless romantic, so I was still in love with Lisa, Caitlin, 8 other girls, right? My dad moved to a 1-bedroom apartment. I still went over there once a week, but I didn't have a room or a bed, so I slept on the carpet. I mean, fuck, buy me a dog bed. I don't care, I'll sleep on that shit, fucking rubber chew toy in my mouth. I asked my dad, I'm like, I like these girls and I don't know how to ask them out, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, I'm not your real dad. But I remember laying on the floor writing a different poem for every girl I had a crush on. Like, why? Am I wooing them? I'm not a page boy from the Renaissance. I put the poems into individual envelopes labeled with the name of every girl and put them in my backpack. I don't know what my plan was. I was gonna hand them the envelope and run away like I'm giving them court papers. Yeah, you've been served with my heart. They were awful poems. I had help from a dollar store rhyming dictionary. I'd look up what rhymes with love, glove, shove, above. My name, what rhymes with Allen, Zeppelin, Falcon, Captain, Virgin, what? But I chickened out. I had a backpack full of love poems, and I didn't have the confidence to go up to a girl and ask them out. And I know what you're thinking. The worst they can do is say no. Wrong. They can do so many worse things. They could laugh at me. They could tell all their friends. They could bite my head off and devour my corpse for nourishment. Yeah, girls will do that because it gives them amino acids, so they produce a greater number of eggs. You would know that if you've ever taken biology at Catholic school. In fact, that's my number one of my top 3 fears. Not the egg thing, but Catholic school. But I'm on the school bus, and somehow a bunch of kids get into my backpack. I mean, they opened it, right? They didn't climb in. The body of a middle school kid is well beyond the capacity of a North Face book bag. But they all start reading my poems out loud on the bus, and they said the poems were pretty good, which I'm glad they reacted that way. I half expected them to hold me down and take turns beating me up, which I don't take personally. I know it's a coping mechanism they need to overcome their own low self-esteem issues. I'm actually happy for them. I'm like, good job. I can actually feel your personal growth breaking my nose. If you ever have a problem with bullies, I have a technique. I say, I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. Boy, does that make them feel helpless. Although I did have one bully who was really smart. I won't say his name, but it rhymed with Bloogie Blouser. He didn't fall for it. I said, I'm rubber, you're glue. He said, you can't be rubber. Your mom gave birth to you and your dumb sister. A rubber is the only thing she didn't have. It was a very sophisticated comeback for kindergarten. But one of the girls on the bus took a poem I wrote and gave it to Vanessa Kiley, which immediately everyone in the school knew about it. Like, it was disrupting classes because, Vanessa Kiley was the most popular girl in the school. She was way out of my league. And I knew that because my English teacher, Mr. Gilbert, said she is way out of your league. I said, I've got every 7th grader in the school reading poetry. I'm doing your job better than you. But then I wrote Vanessa another poem and then another one. And then one day she handed me a note with her number on it. And she looked me in the eyes and said, can you pass this to Tyler? No, Vanessa was a sweetheart, but nothing happened, right? And I didn't really have any friends until around that time when I met Terrell. And as you could probably guess from his name, Terrell was Jewish and black. He was a black Jew. Like, for this story, he was a black Jew. The cafeteria had 4 long rows of tables. It was kind of segregated. Like, if you were white, you sat with the white kids. If you were Asian, you sat with the Asian kids. If you were black, you sat with me. But Terrell introduced me to everyone, and those were the only friends I had. Now, I'm white, but I have what's called high-functioning Caucasianism. Like, I'm white, but I've never done the chicken dance in public. In fact, if the chicken dance song comes on, I will leave the room, find another room to do it in private. And every day they were at the table, they'd be rapping, someone would be like, hey man, drop a beat. I'm like, yeah man, drop the beat. Now I've never rapped, but they're like, Alan, you wrote all those poems, like why don't you drop a freestyle? Do a diss toward Antonio. And he had just freestyled about me being white, so I'm like, I'm the nicest to do it. Your bars are tainted. Bro, you're not even black. Your face is painted. And they're all like, oh, and everybody at the table goes crazy. They're all laughing, doing the Bobby Shmurda dance. Terrell takes off his yarmulke, throws it on the ground. Starts doing the horror dance, making it rain with everything bagels. But eventually I went from middle school to high school, right? I'm not bragging, that's what the Lord blessed me with. Right, 9th grade, freshman. On my 30th surgery, the doctor hit a nerve, and for a month, half of my face was completely paralyzed. I mean, I wanted a brain like Stephen Hawking, but I only got the shit bit. My hearing declined, my doctor told me he couldn't see me anymore. I'm like, unless you got cataracts, you're a fucking liar. And that year, my 5-year-old sister had talked to people from Child Services, and Child Services is an American privilege. Like, if you go to China, Child Services is a corporation that makes iPhones. She told them my mom was abusive, which was kind of true. I mean, she hit us with a belt. I always thought of it as training for the WWE. Some parents take it too far. They think they're hacksaw Jim Duggan, flash you a big thumbs up, call you a hoe, and hit you over the head with a 2x4. But she wasn't using us for batting practice or anything. But that day, she told me to take my sister for a walk, and that was her normal way of saying, hey, spring training's around the corner, don't be the high point of my scouting report. We get back home, my mom's throwing up lying on the floor. She had gathered and taken all the medicine that was in the house, literally everything we had, the Tylenol, the Advil. It was the Flintstone vitamins that really pissed me off. Have you had the Flintstone vitamins? They're delicious. I wanted those. It's like having a roommate that eats all your food. What, do I gotta put a label on everything in the house? Get your own EpiPen. So my grandmother committed suicide, my mom's twin sister committed suicide, and my mom just took everything in the medicine cabinet. I took a 23andMe. They offered to send my results through a Ouija board. I took my sister into my room, put on crank yankers, and if you ever find yourself trying to protect a 5-year-old child from being psychologically damaged, maybe don't put on a show with prank calls from a special needs Muppet. I called 911. I said, hello, I have an emergency. All my Flintstone vitamins are gone. I believe the culprit is still here. She just threw up Dino. But she is still alive. The doctors pumped her stomach, and it was a bit awkward at first. Like, I had already started digging the hole. For a couple months, I had to dress like I was Indiana Jones and pretend I was really into archaeology. But that year, I didn't have any friends, and I got bullied. I slept in all my classes, and this is 100% true. I got more than one referral for snoring in class. I told the principal, you know, you're right, it's inconsiderate, it's distracting to other students, it won't happen again. But then he was livid when I tried to plug in my CPAP machine. But I didn't have any friends, I got bullied, I had a 0.5 GPA. I had to repeat it again at a new school. 9th grade, freshman. But every day I would go to school and drink vodka, right? I put it in a water bottle first, right? I didn't show up to trigonometry with a handle of Grey Goose. Right? The teacher would call me up to the board. There's 3 problems on the board. I'm fucking hammered though, so I'm confident. Like, I know how to solve that one and that one. I have no fucking idea how to solve that one. He's like, there's only one problem on the board. So I dropped out. Apparently you don't have to go to school for 4 years to get a diploma. You can get a GED in 2 weeks. People argue that it'll affect your social life. No, it won't. Fucking call people, right? Hey man, wanna hang out? Yeah, whenever you want. I'm free for the next 206 weeks. My mom got a new boyfriend who was clinically psychotic. He was like if Jeffrey Dahmer had a baby with fava beans and bath salt. And I told my mom, you know, it's either gonna be me or him, so, you know, I'm living in my car. I got a job as a grocery bagger. You expect that to be an easy job. You know, I thought there was only one way to bag groceries. Step 1, put the food into the bag. Yeah, those white women couldn't wait to get to the register and tell me how wrong I was. Paper, plastic, recycling. One person wants everything to have its own bag. One person wants eggs, milk, and cat litter all in one bag. And that's when the lady comes up with her crying baby and says the baby was sad because you're not even supposed to start bagging until you greet the baby. Yeah, you're supposed to tip your hat to him. How do you do, baby? And when you're in retail, you have to be nice to the customers, right? You have to. You can't say, fuck your baby, or you'll get fired. So I got fired. right? I turned 18, tried to join the army, but they don't take deaf people. That's probably a good policy. I can't even wear hats, right? It causes feedback from my hearing aid. The last thing you want when the enemy is closing in with guns is to be hiding in a bush with face paint on and 8 layers of camouflage next to me and my hearing aid going, I also weighed like 270 pounds. Like, you know how some people have a thigh gap? I wanted a thigh gap. My thighs were like a whole Venn diagram of deep fried fatty foods and bi-weekly birthday cake. And we all care too much about looks. Like, we see attractive people and assume they're funny or smart or charitable, that they spend their Thanksgiving at the soup kitchen. And that's not true. Like, it's not all Hollister models at the soup kitchen, is it? In fact, most people you see at the soup kitchen are quite ugly. They are homeless. I know I'm supposed to feel bad for them because they're hooked on heroin or whatever. I don't. They've got free gumbo. I don't have free gumbo. How's that fair? If I want free gumbo, I gotta start shooting heroin. Do heroin, that's the message here. Like, not only do you get free gumbo, you also get a thigh gap. But I was insecure about my weight and my scars. Like, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I mean, I could, I wasn't a vampire. But I wanted to lose weight, so I took diet pills and ate 1,000 calories a day, because I don't know where to find heroin. It's not like I can go to CVS and ask them, hey, you got any smack back there? The best I can do is hang out at the CVS and follow around some customers. You see them buying syringes and a tourniquet. Be like, hey man, you know where I can get some heroin? He's like, no, I'm an RN at a hospital. Like, my bad. By the way, you got some gumbo on your lip. But I lost over 100 pounds. I got a tattoo, a piercing, a beard. I went from being a virgin nerd with no confidence to a slightly hotter virgin nerd with no confidence. I thought I'd be happy when I got to my target weight, right? I wasn't. Target weight is a myth, right? Target weight is when you're no longer so fat you have to shop at Walmart. But for 2 years, I saw obvious signs that girls found me attractive. And I know I'm not like Tom Cruise. I am way taller. But I think back to Kelly and Kaylin, and I wonder, like, are they lying to me? Or if they do find me attractive, I have all these flaws you can't see, right? I have a speech impediment, scars on my body, I have a hearing loss, and I'm an Eagles fan. That's 2 disabilities. I met one girl online. Like, I talked to her on the phone for 2 months, not like in a row, but there were bathroom breaks. You could probably talk to them on the phone while going to the bathroom. They wouldn't even know. Right? But, you know, I'm not trying to start a relationship built on that kind of deception. But then I found out I was being catfished, and if you don't know what being catfished is, it's when someone uses a profile photo that's not really them. You think they're this real attractive person, then find out they're actually a bottom-dwelling freshwater fish with barbels resembling cat whiskers. But I remember I was at Disney World by myself. I was 21, it was my birthday, and if you go on your birthday, it's free, right? Any other day, it cost about $300, a lifetime of compound interest, and the blood of your firstborn. And every night, they do a fireworks show in order to ward people off with PTSD. But I'm sitting there watching the show. Everyone around me is there with their significant other or family or fuck buddy. I'm not judging. But I knew I was never gonna find love or have a family. I was 21 years old on my birthday by myself at Disney World, surrounded by a crowd of people, and I had never felt more alone. And just then, like, the most beautiful girl I had ever seen in my life tapped me on my shoulder and asked me if I'm okay. I'm like, fuck off, I'm trying to wallow in sadness here. Well, a month later, I'm at my job. I'm at my job stocking shelves at Kmart. And the hardest part of stocking shelves at Kmart is convincing your boss that the shelves aren't already stocked. Because nobody buys anything from Kmart, right? You go to Kmart to look at people who make you feel good about your life choices. Maybe ask the bagger to greet your baby, then leave. And I see this beautiful punk rock girl, and I love every type of woman, but I have a thing for that smoky eyeshadow. She's like a sexy Captain Jack Sparrow. Now, she's hot, but I'm not gonna hit on her. Like, she's obviously been through enough. She's shopping at Kmart. But then I recognize a different girl from high school. I go, Carly? Because that's how you confirm it's them. Like, there's nothing worse when you go, Carly? And they go, no, I'm Bob. But it was Carly this time. She told me her friend, the hot punk rocker girl, she didn't call her that, I'm explaining it to you. But she told me her friend kept talking about how cute I was. He's like Tom Cruise, but taller. Like that's probably what she said. And normally I have what doctors call a weak-ass game. But I played it cool, and she gave me her number. It was a real number, too, like not one of those fake numbers. Like, I hate when you get a fake number. You look at your phone, and you're trying to figure out how to dial the square root of I. Yeah, I was up all night trying to figure out how to call her on a calculator. But her name was Meg, and that night she invited me over. We drank, talked, made out, and at 21, she was the first girl I ever kissed. And Meg and Carly lived together in a trailer, which I lived in a trailer before. Mine just hadn't been featured on Cops. And Meg was living off her. Meg was kind of a user, not like heroin, but like, well, yeah, probably heroin. But she takes advantage of people, right? She used me because she didn't really have a way to get around, because she didn't have a car, not because she was a cripple or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with being a cripple. She wouldn't have needed me if she was a cripple. She would have had one of those motorized carts. But Meg wanted to go to the club every day of the week, and I'd never been to the club. Like, I'd been to Sam's Club. Sam's Club is fire. I can get a flat screen, a futon, and all the corn in Iowa for 83 cents. I get a big jumbo slice of pizza, then I go and get my hearing tested. Yeah, I know I'm gonna fail, but I try like extra hard. You know, they tell you to respond when you hear the beep. It's like, me, now! Yeah, then they get the results and it freaks them out. I'm like, what have you done to me? Yeah, it's a good time, but right, I went to the club and they don't have any of that shit. I had to pay for parking, wait in line for an hour. The guys are looking for the hottest girl in the club, and I'm looking for the old lady with a vest on so I can get my free ham on a toothpick. And the bartender told me a bottle of vodka cost $300. I mean, like, you know what I could buy with $300 at Sam's Club? I could buy a Sam's Club. Fuck the club, bro. It's crowded, everyone's on drugs. It's like someone got a bunch of strobe lights and put on Skrillex in a soup kitchen. And one day, Meg told me she wanted to have sex in my car, so I give her the keys, wait till they're done. Yeah, I'm tapping on the window. I think I left my charger in there. No, that's not true. I actually turned down sex with Meg, and it doesn't matter what gender you are. If you have a high libido, you think about sex 80, 90 times a day, and that's an average, right? Some days are lower. Some days, like, if you go to a funeral, it's way higher. But it's hard when someone finally says, hey, let's do that thing you think about every second of the day, and you gotta be like, why don't we just cut each other's toenails instead? The closest thing I can think of is when somebody says, hey, do you want to pet my puppy? And you're like, yeah, I want to pet the puppy. But you can't, right? Because you've never pet a puppy before, and the first puppy you pet should be one that you love, right? You don't want to... You don't want to seem like you're rejecting them, but you can't pet every puppy. Some of them bite you or have diseases. And girls are allowed to not pet the puppy, but if you're a guy, other straight guys are like, oh, you don't want to pet the puppy. What are you, gay, bro? But I didn't just want to have sex with her. I wanted to, be in a relationship, and she wanted to be in a rehab facility. It's like God told me, I've got this girl. She's into video games, and she's a klepto-cokehead with no job, no education, or any sense of personal responsibility. And I'm like, what kind of video games? And I did, dumb things to impress her. Like, we went to Target, and she took $600 worth of cosmetics and hides it in her purse, and now I'm part of a makeup heist. I had planned on stealing no products, and now I gotta be the lookout, and if somebody's coming, which, despite all the movies I've seen, is a terrible way to not draw attention to yourself. In fact, only two types of people make bird noises in public. You're either a lookout for a heist, or you're a SoundCloud rapper. The security guard comes by, he's like, what's with all the commotion? I'm like, nothing, just working on a mixtape. Some of these details aren't accurate, but she did steal $600 worth of makeup. I mean, it was a lot of makeup. I mean, she could have bought 2 Sam's Clubs. But I'm holding her hand, like, while we walk out the door, and they have, those big sensors that go off, like, even when you're not stealing anything, just to let everyone know you were feeling too confident. And I already have anxiety about those, because they're like a big impromptu hearing test that can happen at any time. Me, now! But they didn't go off. It kind of made me angry, because for years I've been psychologically stressed out. A cashier's gonna forget to take the tag off, I'm not gonna hear the beep, and they're gonna think I'm making a break for it and gun me down from behind. But somehow we got away with it, and 2 weeks later she got arrested for shoplifting a pencil sharpener, which is too stupid to make up. And if I were going to steal a pencil sharpener, I'd steal a nice, expensive electric pencil sharpener, like with LED lights and Bluetooth. But she didn't even do that. She stole one of those run-of-the-mill plastic Amish pencil sharpeners. I know what you're thinking, like who steals a pencil sharpener, but maybe a pencil sharpener is the best thing to steal. Like if you're thinking ahead, you get a pack of number 2 pencils, now you got a bunch of shanks to use on the prison guards. Yeah, you break out of jail the next day, you're in the newspaper as the notorious mastermind behind the infamous lead poison massacre. And you got a free pencil sharpener, so I helped get her out, right? I mean, I paid her bail. I didn't stab anybody. And that night, she threw a party, right? Because when Meg's life hits a little bump in the road, she tries to snort it. But the night I, bailed her out of jail, and at a party that she invited me to, I walked in on her having sex with another guy, and, I was upset because he wasn't even a looker. I didn't know whether to be angry or to tell her or to have some confidence in herself. And I understand, like, Meg and I were not an item. Like, if you looked us up on Amazon, it'd be like, item not found, bro. Now, I'm not mad at her for having sex with somebody else. I thought I was invited to a party, right? If she gave me an invitation that said, come watch me suck Quasimodo's uncircumcised dick while he plays Thumb Wars with my cervix, I would have RSVP'd with a maybe. If you really want to bring down their spirits, you RSVP with a maybe, right? Because a maybe is like a no, but it also makes them apprehensive because they don't know how many plates to set. Yeah, if they think they're going to have an audience, they are mistaken. They're going to end up having sex in front of an empty metal chair and 14 ounces of cold, uneaten Wagyu. But Meg got me over my insecurity, and the hardest thing to do is to overcome your doubts. That's why the water temple in Zelda was so difficult. Right? Link had all kinds of doubt. It's hard not to have doubt when your entire wardrobe is green rompers and Ugg boots. And the iron boots were a metaphor. They're moccasins made of depression to weigh you down, and the water's your tears. And only by overcoming yourself can you get the tool that you need to get to the next level, and it's a long shot. But you gotta listen to the fairy, though. It even tells you, listen. I still haven't figured out who the fairy is in this metaphor. I'm gonna go back and play and do some more acid. But I started gaining confidence, and you gotta understand that the internet is a lot different now than it was when I was 14 years old. Right back then, there were only 2 types of people. You had nerdy 14-year-old boys, hi, and they were horny, sending pictures of their dicks to 14-year-old girls, and then there were 50-year-old men who knew how to lie and get those dick pics. And we all knew it. Like, that was the whole internet. It was a symbiotic relationship. Before MySpace, it was all losers online. I can say that. I was one of them. And if you were a girl online before MySpace, right, you didn't need a thirst trap, right? You just had to be a girl, and incel noises intensify. But even 10 years ago, like, there was a big stigma about online dating, and I used to use a website called OkCupid. They would make you take the SATs before you could sign up. They had thousands of questions, right? One of the first ones was, do you think the Earth revolves around the sun? Which I can't believe is a real question. Apparently, when flat earthers get on an airplane, they think it's one of those big roller coaster simulators at the mall. I'm looking out the window like it's a big IMAX with grease stains. On the outside, there's a big burly guy shaking the whole thing. Oh, there's some turbulence. I don't know why he sounds like Macho Man Randy Savage, but that's why I like OkCupid, right? I look at my matches, I know those people aren't there. You swipe right on Tinder, you don't know what you're gonna get. You end up spending your whole date debating whether gravity can even exist. Which normally is not a debate I expect to have with somebody who's not floating gracefully over my head. I dated a lot of girls, none of which thought they exhibited physical properties that defy the laws of Newton. Eventually, I got good at dating, but there is kind of a learning curve. Unless you are dating flat earthers, then it's more of a learning plane. Rule number 1 is don't date somebody who just got out of a relationship. Like, you're at dinner and her ex is texting her a bunch of Drake lines. Right? You look at her phone, it's not even a song, it's a bunch of quotes from Degrassi. Like, one girl messaged me who had just broken up with her boyfriend 2 days earlier, and I'm looking for love. I'm not trying to, like, be somebody's rebound. So that night, I'm at a party making out with her. But I told her I was a virgin and that sex wouldn't be on the table, because I was saving myself, not because I had concerns about the structural integrity of her table. nothing wrong with the table. It was a fine table. It was the type of table I'd want my kids to grow up with. Yeah, you point at it, you go, we made you there. It's a good way to ruin their birthday party. But I made it clear, like, no sex on any of the interior furnishings. But her and her roommate are having this party, and I'm drunk making out with her. She's like, don't we have a great connection? I'm like, yeah, I guess the Wi-Fi is good. But she's on her phone messaging her roommate, who's right there, but the message, goes through immediately. It was good Wi-Fi. But she's on my lap, and her phone is in my face, and not to brag, but I can read at an 8th grade level. And don't try to read someone's text if you're not good at reading, like, they will know. It's obvious if you've got your finger under the words and you're trying to sound it out. But she's telling her roommate that we have great chemistry and that the sex would be amazing, which it wouldn't be. Why would it be good? I'm a virgin. Like, you wouldn't look at a pilot that's never flown and been like, oh, I want to get on a plane with them. Yeah, even if they can get it up, they don't know what buttons to push, and the whole thing crashes and burns in 2 minutes. Everyone's like, why didn't you press the anti-crash button? They're like, I didn't even know there was an anti-crash button. But there is. It's in a secret compartment. You got to put your fingers in 3 inches and then go up. And later that night, we were making out naked on her bed. Right, I'm a virgin, doesn't mean I'm not a hoe. Now, I don't want to be crude. I'm just telling you what went down. Well, we both went down. And I didn't carry condoms, like, for the same reason I don't carry a pilot uniform. Like, I had no intention of flying any planes. All of my planes are at sea level. Like, maybe I'll do some diving. Right, but I had no plans of entering myself into any cockpit. But we're both drunk, and she's trying to insert me into the cockpit, and I had to push her off and be like, no, which is weird because I've always dreamed of being a pilot. I go online every day and watch point of view videos on pilothub.com. I pretend I'm flying. Like, sometimes my co-pilot is a sexy woman. Sometimes it's a guy. I'm progressive. Or neither, right? I don't subscribe to the binary spectrum of pilots, right? Not every pilot identifies with the gender they're airborne with. But the next morning, she's texting her ex, and she told him that she was pregnant and wanted to keep it, and I didn't have sex with her, so it's not mine unless... Jesus? Right? They always say he's coming back. Like, what if it is Jesus? Like, do I make an appointment at Planned Parenthood? I don't want you to think I'm evil. I don't think I'm mentally mature enough to raise the Lord. And she was drinking. I can't let her give birth to fetal alcohol syndrome Jesus. Like, my kid's supposed to be the savior of the world, and he can't even pull a B in religious studies? I gotta go to his school plays and watch him be the tree, bro? And then I gotta yell at him on the ride home, like, how could you not land a leading role? It's a fucking nativity scene, Jesus. Yeah, I know it's your birthday. They did 80 songs about it. No, I'm not getting you a carpenter kit. Last time I bought you nails, you put holes in both of your hands. But I stopped talking to her, and I dated a few others. I do want you to know not everyone you meet online is either a pathological liar or a weirdo. Normally they're both. Also, you never know what you're gonna get when you're dating, right? I'm sure you all know what a Brazilian wax is, right? And more than one girl said I was the first guy they met with one. Yeah, for a couple months, my balls looked like a cancer patient. I dated one girl who worked for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and she said that those balls could get you a visit from John Cena. I said, as much as I want to meet John Cena, I would much rather get a sympathy blowjob or something. And to my surprise, she agreed. Like, that night, I got a sympathy blowjob from John Cena. And it wasn't one of those toothy blowjobs either. He was gentle. Yeah, that's why they always yell, Cena sucks, right? He is very committed to charity. Eventually, I got into my first serious relationship. I call it a serious relationship because if I talk about it on stage, she doesn't think it's funny at all. But getting into a relationship, it's like going on a cruise. That's why it's called a relationship. You don't go on a cruise expecting bad things, right? You see the cruise from the outside, it's got everything you want from a boat, right? It's floating on top of the water. Everything you want from a boat. It's only when they undock that you're out in the middle of the ocean and find out that the buffet is vegan, they got a gambling problem on the main deck, and the live band only plays Cardi B cover songs. But you've already told everyone you called your mom. You're like, hey, Mom, I'm going on a cruise. Yeah, I think it's called the Titanic. Literally unsinkable. Right? You go online, everyone's posting photos of their cruise on Instagram, so you gotta find good shit to take photos of, and that's when you realize you're on the no good shit cruise, bro. You are on SS no good shit. The whole buffet is vegan gumbo. You're on a floating soup kitchen. Right? You walk past all the heroin heads and bump into them because fuck it, they never fall over anyway. You go on Instagram, try to take photos of the goodest shit you can find. Hashtag all-inclusive facts machine. You take a picture of yourself drinking water from the water fountain, give a big thumbs up. They're like, sir, that's a bidet. A week later, you hit an iceberg, which you really didn't expect because you were in the Bahamas. And the entire ship snaps in half. People are bobbing in the ocean, screaming. You're still on Instagram, hashtag swimming with the dolphins. The entire ship is going down. There's a lady chasing after her drowning cat, Mr. Mittens! And that's when the live band, which is still playing, goes grab a bucket and a mop. That's a wet-ass pussy. Then you gotta swim back to the shore. I mean, it's not that hard. You had only moved 10 feet. But when I was 21, I got my first full-blown girlfriend. Not like an inflatable doll, but she said her ex was abusive and controlling. She couldn't wear revealing clothes because he would get jealous. And I've seen his pictures. I mean, he should be jealous. He didn't have the legs to pull off Daisy Dukes. Her dad lived in a gated community, prison. So we both got our baggage and we're about to be seafaring. For a month, she was pressuring me to have sex, so I fucked her sister. No, I didn't, but I caved in, right? We had sex. I caved in. Like if I were a cave with people inside, their obituary would have said death by spelunking. And it was over. Like I got a call from Amazon trying to hire me for their delivery service because they've never seen anything come in a box faster than I did. She's bisexual. People say, oh, she's bisexual. You get to have sex with 2 women at the same time. No, you get to have sex with 1 woman wearing flannel. I wanted to get her flowers, you know, the kind with petals. I asked her what her favorite flower was, and she said she doesn't believe in killing plants because she's a Wiccan. I'm like, you're a Wiccan? That means her Bible is the New Testament, Harry Potter. And I still don't know what her favorite flower is, but when the person you're dating comes out as a wizard, who gives a fuck what their favorite flower is? But that was not a deal breaker. I never said I had a muggles-only dating policy. A couple weeks later, my dad died. I guess the incantations do work. No, I wish he died in like a cool way, you know, so these jokes would be funnier. Like Pete Davidson from SNL, his dad was a firefighter who died on 9/11, right? My dad died from alcohol poisoning. So, you know, both killed by a fireball. But, yeah, I'm over it now. It's been 10 years and he died doing what he loved, you know, getting out of child support. A couple days later, I'm with my girl, you know, she's giving me a blowjob, because when your dad dies, you get sympathy blowjobs. Yeah, I mean, she's no John Cena, but I'm always happy to, you know, get a blowjob. Maybe if I stab my mom, I'll get a threesome. And you want a relationship, right? You want to be with somebody when one of your parents die, you know, in case you need an alibi. But if you're single, you have no emotional support, right? You're by yourself, you just gotta suck it up. It's like giving yourself a sympathy blowjob. Like a month later, her ex-boyfriend messaged me on Facebook and said, I recently had sex with your girlfriend, which is a weird way to spell hi. And just because somebody writes something on the internet doesn't mean it's true, right? Like Abraham Lincoln said that in a tweet. But she denied it, and if there's an altercation, like you have to get behind your partner, right? That's step 1 to getting anal. And I had been with her most of that time, right? There was a very small window where they could have had sex, right? And you don't want to have sex in a window. It'd be very uncomfortable, and the blinds would get in the way. And I don't mean like shutters that block the light, right? That window goes into a home for the visually impaired, so the, you know, Stevie Wonder blinds would have been in the way. Yeah, you're just trying to have sex in a window and they keep hitting you in the face with a cane. But I started getting paranoid and looking for signs everywhere, like, you know, she hasn't texted me in 2 hours, which is a big red flag, because 2 hours ago she went to sleep. But it is a red flag, right? 100% of everyone who has ever cheated on their partner goes to sleep. That's a little nibble of science for you. That's where they dream up the lies that they're gonna tell, so you gotta get a dream catcher, put it at the top of their bed. And even if that doesn't work, at least when they do cheat on you, they're gonna have to look at some ugly decor. And now they're cheating on Native American territory, so they're gonna get a knock at the door and get reprimanded by the head chief in charge, Elizabeth Warren. But I became paranoid about everything, right? She was being secretive with her emails, the OG Hillary Clinton. We got into a whole argument, like, why are you being secretive with your emails? And it's because she went on Craigslist and got me a Nintendo 64 for my birthday. And I am an asshole, but I'm an asshole with a Nintendo 64. Yeah, I felt bad. All I got her was a dream catcher. Like a week later, she gets a text from a different guy talking about how he wants to have sex with her. And then we get in another argument. She's like, no, that's his personality. Like, that's how he talks to women. I'm like, man, that's gotta be awkward when he texts his grandma. But it tore apart my whole reality. Like, I'm living in two different worlds. In one world, I know I'm the one being irrational. I'm like, why haven't we had sex in a week? And she's like, I was on my period. I'm like, well, then why aren't we having sex now? She's like, we're at church. On the other hand, I had this feeling that something wasn't right. Like, why are we at church if she's a Wiccan? Maybe because the comedian couldn't think of a better punchline, just go with it. But I wanted to believe her because I love this weird little wizard. A couple weeks later, she finally sent me a message on Facebook admitting that she cheated on me, like with her ex, after pressuring me to lose my virginity, and 2 days after my dad died. I was like, thank God. Because I was really losing my grip on reality. It's like, oh, I'm not crazy, I'm just unlovable. But I was 21, it was a difficult year in my life. I was in a scary place called Florida. And then I packed up all my stuff. I was like, I gotta get out of here, right? I gotta move away somewhere that's not so fucking crazy. So I moved to Baltimore. I started doing comedy and open mics, and I remember a comedian told me whenever you do a performance, you always want to end the show on a really, really good joke. So this is gonna be awkward. I actually don't know any jokes. A Jew walks into a bar. I'm like, what up, Terrell? But no matter what you go through, someone always has it worse than you. Baltimore has a really high homeless population. Now, I don't know if you know what a Black and Mild is. It's like a cigar. It has a really distinct smell. Now, I'm walking down the street, and I was not aware that there was a homeless gentleman who happened to be African American around the corner. I turned the corner. I said out loud, I smell a black. Which is the wrong thing to say, but he was cool. He was an old head. I apologized. I'm like, I'm not racist. I'm just a fucking moron. White people, we call that the Trump defense. He said, you can't be too careful. There's a lot of crooked cops out here. They all got scoliosis. He said music was better back in the 40s. I was like, word? He was like, yeah, I could hear back then. I'm like, I'm deaf too. My girl just cheated on me right after my dad died. He said the same shit happened to me. Just be happy you didn't eat her ass. You eat her ass, you get cheated on, then you gotta go back to the dating scene and you got doo-doo breath. He said my mom always wanted me to be more like my brother, dead. I spent $300 on my wife for Christmas. She never came in the mail. My nephew's getting older, so I set up a swear jar. Every time he cusses, he has to put $1 in. It's going pretty well, because he has Tourette's. This dude is killing me, right? So I got a rebuttal. I'm like, when I was a kid, I used to crap my pants, which, was embarrassing. So I finally came up with a great solution. I stopped wearing pants. And every Christmas, I would sneak into my mom's room, try to get a sneak peek at the presents I'd be getting. Once I went through her dresser, ended up finding a massive vibrating dildo the size of my fucking forearm. It was exactly what I asked for. That's when he said, hey man, you seem pretty cool. Let's go down to the soup kitchen, get some fucking gumbo. That's been my time. Thank you. My name is Alan Pysnack.
When they hate, I make that why you mad face. I get down with every type if they can fuck like Betty White. I need a roughneck in the bed. I'm talking word to MC Light. Ow. Drop the beat and tried to run me on the mic. Ow. Got the green, I make that gumpy come to life. Ow. Y'all in trouble, bring 'em forward on the double, boy. So clean, yeah, my neighbor call me Bubble Boy.